Let's go back to Christmas, 1972. I'm a month shy of my 15th birthday. My mum and dad are out at a dance, and I'm with my granny. My wee sister has gone to bed, and there's just the two of us. My gran loves horror movies, and BBC Two have one on. We know nought about it, except that it's new, a first showing, and it was written by the man who created Quatermass. We'd both already seen Quatermass in the Pit and loved it, so we settled down, with the lights dimmed, to watch The Stone Tape. An hour and a half later, my life has changed. The Stone Tape is a strange beast. The sets are wonky, the acting, especially by the male lead, gets very shouty and very histrionic. There's a very annoying comedy subplot about washing machines, of all things, and nowadays the tech that's on show in the film, especially the computers, looks antique and very, very clunky. And yet, remember, this was before Stephen King, before Jaws, before The Exorcist. The real boom time for horror and scares had yet to come. I'd been getting my own horror kicks from the likes of Dennis Wheatley, but his rich folks in country houses didn't really resonate with council estate me at all. The Stone Tape hit me immediately with modernity and spoke to bits of me that wanted to be a scientist and other bits of me that wanted something more than that. At the end of that first watch, it felt like I'd been through one of those washing machines. It's the first time I remember being absolutely terrified by something I'd seen on television. Sure, there'd been some scares before. I'd had nightmares brought on by my reading habits as a kid. Things like goblins and riddles in the dark, or a mad monk who sometimes appeared at the foot of my bed at nights, or the early watch of Snow White where the Wicked Queen crept me out, and strangely enough, the transformation scene in Jerry Lewis's The Nutty Professor, which with his red lights and strobes got me so terrified I had to leave the cinema. I was only about 7 at that point. But that Christmas night, I was nearly 15, and I thought I'd left all that childhood stuff behind me, but I was wrong. The Stone Tape remains, even to this day, one of the landmarks of supernatural television. The IMDb entry does little to give away what makes it tick. It reads, a research team from an electronics company move into an old Victorian house to start work on finding a new recording medium. When team member Jill witnesses a ghost, team director Peter decides not only to analyse the apparition, which he believes is a psychic impression, but to exorcise it. And this has terrifying results. Now it sounds hokey put like that, but Kneale's way of layering a good idea with real people, involving not just the scientists but the regulars in the local pub, the vicar, and telling of stories of the history of the house. It gives it all depth and puts flesh on the bones, builds the plot, much the same way as the stones themselves have built the house. I mentioned the acting earlier. Yes, the lead male's a shouty sod, and he gets annoying, especially on repeated viewings, but Jane Asher's vulnerability works perfectly for her role. Ian Cuthbertson acts as a solid anchor for sensible types, and there's a young James Cosmo lurking away in the background. The soundtrack too deserves special mention. It provides screams and screeches, thuds and knocks and whispers that throw even seemingly innocuous scenes slightly off balance and ensures we never get time to settle. It might have been Christmas. This is no cosy ghost story. As the layers of their personal relationships are stripped away, the house's memory is stripped away at the same time, and it reveals itself. Kneale skillfully intertwines the modern and the past, and the denouement, when it comes, is all the more shocking for it. That last scene stayed with me all night after the first viewing, and after the holidays when we got back to school I discovered that all my pals had seen it too, and had been just as affected as I had. We spent many an hour talking about it, and that led to a couple of us directly experimenting for ourselves with things like sonic mood-altering tapes and Ouija boards and reading everything we could find about the stone tape theory. It gave me a love of investigating old stones that persists to this day, and it led me down pathways I hadn't previously walked into mysticism, tarot readings, astral projection, and many other subjects that moulded not just my ways of thought as a teenager, but my ways of writing stories nowadays. It's all Nigel Kneale's fault. It's all the Stone Tape's fault. And in the end, the reason it affects me so strongly is it's all about how the stories we tell each other to get through life, and how stories from even the most distant past can survive and resonate through lifetimes even, and through all the works of humanity, and break through into the present unasked for and unexpected. It's a Lovecraftian sensibility in a way, and turns up frequently in Kneale's work. It's a motif that defines his stuff, and it's both thought-provoking and genuinely scary to me. The idea of walls and buildings holding memories and perhaps even something more than that, perhaps some form of consciousness, has also recurred now in my own writing, most recently in my ongoing sigils and totem stuff. I can see Nigel Kneale's legacy down there at the root of them, the seed from which it all started back in 1972, and a seed that's still growing. Terror is a rarely used word these days, but it's one Nigel Kneale knew a lot about. He knew where it lurks, he knew how to evoke it, and he knew how to bring it out of a story, much like bringing stories out of old stone. Thanks for listening. We'll speak again later.